Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of Sin and Tonic. Today's story is that of Kim Edwards and Lucas Markham. The case is known as the Spalding murders and also the Twilight killings. Intrigued? Let's find out why. Let's go. Sin and Tonic! Just quickly, today's beverage is, check me out, I've got ginger ale with my gin. Ginger ale. Lush. Yum. So, today's story takes place in Lincolnshire. Let's introduce Kim Edwards and Lucas Markham. The pair met at secondary school and Kim fell in love with Lucas when she witnessed him launching a chair across the classroom. And his behaviour meant that he would end up spending the majority of his time at school in the behavioural unit. But so she saw him have a big paddy and she thought, that's my guy. However, Kim was a troubled soul as well, and it would become evident that their relationship was toxic and it wasn't good, it wasn't healthy. But they found each other and it was all sorts of wrong. It was all sorts of wrong. And they're teenagers. And like we've said before, when you're a teenager, your frontal lobe is not developed. It's not developed until you're like 25. So you're an idiot until then, basically. You could argue that some never fully develop, but that's another story. Their union would prove to be very dramatic. It would become incredibly codependent, all-consuming, and very intense. Kim's childhood had not been the easiest. At some point, and I couldn't find the dates and the times, but her mother would leave her father due to domestic violence. So Kim was in at some age, and it annoyed me because I wanted to know when, but at some age, up to an age, she was in a household witnessing domestic violence against her mother, and her mother then left. She left her father and spent time in women's refuge and things like that. And again, at a non-specified time, and I couldn't find it and it annoyed me in my research, Kim and I believe her sister, but I might be wrong. One source said both children, Kim and Katie, and then another source said just Kim, which would feed into her feelings more. But at some point, Kim spent time in care. Her mum couldn't cope. They had a troubled relationship from very early on, it would seem, from a very young age. Not surprisingly, Kim has got some abandonment issues and attachment issues, and she has this very troubled relationship with her mum. This made her feel like an outsider within her own family, incredibly isolated. She wrote in her diary that she always knew that her mum loved her sister more than her. She believed that her little sister, Katie, was an angel and that she was just a train wreck. So she had very low self-esteem. That would not have been helped by being put into the care system, and then this would have just added into this feeling of being an outsider, especially if Katie didn't get put into care as well. I mean, whoa. Lucas was equally as troubled, and his childhood had also been difficult. He was placed into the care of an aunt with his siblings due to domestic violence in their family life between his mother and father. It was deemed not a safe place for the children to be. Again, this created attachment issues and feelings of abandonment by his mother. And then sadly, while he was in the care of his aunt, his mum passed away. He was a child and his mum passed away. So she was a victim of domestic violence, but she actually passed away from cancer. These teenagers struggled massively, both of them. Their behaviour was not good at school. Lucas is more so, and he ended up in this behavioural unit because of this. Very violent mood swings, really up and down. For the most part, people would say, children at school would say that he was fun and, cool, everything was okay. But then he would have these extreme outbursts. Kim also would have some extreme responses, I can't think of the word, to her mental health issues and her trauma. And she began to have suicidal thoughts as a teenager, and sadly at one point she even she acted on it and she attempted suicide, and it was a very serious attempt. She ended up being in hospital for 2 days. So two very troubled souls. Fan is on because, well, wormies. It's really warmies. I'm basically pretty much naked. Too much information, Sophie. Too much info. Gotta do what you gotta do. Whew. I need like a face deodorant because I get really sweaty like on my top lip and around the hairline. It's not my favourite. Does that exist? Facial deodorant. I need a scalp one as well. I get a really sweaty head. Again, too much information. Oversharing. But seriously though, can you get like a head deodorant? Now I'm thinking. Ooh, let me know in the comments, because I'll definitely purchase that. Anywho, I digress. The pair shared a lot of pain. They came together in a whirlwind of romance. They like completed the puzzle for each other. Doesn't it sound so romantic? But it's dangerous when that happens. It would appear. Oh, I don't think I said how old they were, because at this time they're 14. So they are just kids. They are each other's person. Grey's Anatomy. Love that. So much so that at one point they end up running away together. They're found like 5 days later. So they did a good number. They were gone for 5 days. Can you imagine the worry? And when they were found, like they'd just taken, I think they took a tent. I would just live in a tent. And like a small bag of food. Like, yeah, it was all very juvenile, obviously, because they're kids. But yeah, just young, stupid, and very intense. The thing that is dangerous about their relationship is that they are coming from a place of massive hurt and pain. They are young, frontal lobe not developed, and also they have found each other, and they are very much, very quickly, like us against the world. It's like a Bonnie and Clyde moment here. Worryingly as well, they spent a lot of their time together talking about suicide. Yeah, it's not like they got together, again, because they're young. They didn't get together and think, oh, let's grow as people and heal from our pain. I mean, what the fuck was that noise? Something ding-dinged? Oh, ice. Ice in my glass. Oh, I'm so jumpy. Understandably, Kim's mother, Elizabeth, was really deeply unhappy with this relationship. It was too intense and too much for her. I've said intense so many times. I'm going to not say it anymore. It's annoying me. She didn't believe that this relationship was going to be any good for her daughter's already incredibly fragile state of mind. Also, Elizabeth, I'm going to call her Liz. I think she was known as Liz. Also, Liz noticed some patterns emerging in their relationship that she didn't like at all. Don't forget that Liz had been a victim of domestic violence, and she was just troubled. This Lucas is violent, erratic, and they're having a very codependent relationship. And she was like, too many red flags. You're not going to want that for your kid. However, their shared attachment and abandonment issues were just like, that was just far too strong. They were besotted. Liz talked to the school. She wanted them to be separated. She didn't want them to spend time together. So she was very proactive in trying to keep them apart. This would not end well. And this was the beginning of some very extreme feelings of, well, utter hatred from both of these kids towards Liz. Liz worked in a local charity shop. She was very well known in the community. I think that she was also a dinner lady. The dinner ladies, like, you know everyone. You know all the mums, you know, like a proper gem of the community is a dinner lady. There is no one more so other than like a lollipop lady. I don't think we have lollipop ladies anymore. Sad, isn't it? We don't hear. What a job, lollipop lady. I loved our lollipop lady. So friendly. Just realised that you might not know what a lollipop lady is if you're not from the UK. It is not a lady that gives out lollipops, sadly. Wouldn't that be cool? But also very confusing for children because you don't take sweets from strangers. But it's the lady or man that holds like a big round sign that says stop for traffic, so that you can, outside the school, So it's where you would walk to get into school, to cross the road. She stops the traffic. Lollipop lady. Because the sign looks like a giant lollipop. I wonder what that would be called in America. A safety officer. Oh my God, it's the safety officer. Oh my God, that was terrible. What? Crossing guard. Is that what you would call it? Go to the crossing guard. Oh my God, why do I have to say oh my God to get an American accent? You know, sometimes you have to have a phrase. And it's probably a terrible accent, apologies. Where's it from even? Because there must be 100 million accents, but where is it from like this? Oh my God. Oh my God. Is that LA? Go to the crossing guard. Oh my God. I don't think anyone in America says that. OMG. Hang on. Now I just want to sit here and do accents, like have a go. Alabama. Down south, down deep south. No, that turned to Australian. Alabama, Mississippi. Go to the grocery store. Oh my God. Why is it making me laugh so much? I can't do New York. Yo. Yo. So. Oh, I should stick to what I know. Right, I really have digressed. Come on now, Sophie, back on track. So we were talking about Liz and her jobs. So charity shop and lollipop lady. Oh, God. No, dinner lady. She's not a freaking lollipop lady. I made that up. Stop it. Anywho, Katie, the younger daughter, she is 2 years younger than Kim. Something to note is that Katie is very popular in her year and Kim isn't. So this was also another cause for resentment. On the 9th of April 2016, sorry, I forgot to mention the year. I don't know what's wrong with me today. Oh, what's all going on? Lucas and Kim barricade themselves into Lucas's bedroom. So they're locked in there. And it really is, at this point, them against the world. Sadly, they cannot spend their days there, and Kim has forgotten her contraception. Also, they are sexually active together, 14. You know, Kim's mum is really not happy about the whole thing. So anyway, Kim has left her contraceptive pill at her house. So they leave Lucas's bedroom, they climb out of a window, they go to Kim's house, and she gets her contraceptive pill. When they arrive, Kim finds that her mum it's quite an aggressive move, but she's emptied all of the stuff out of like Kim's room, like emptied it out. She's obviously just had enough. She's well had enough. She's really had enough of this behaviour, and yeah, she's also, now this would have been a kicker. This was a pivotal moment because she'd also given some of Kim's stuff to her younger sister Katie. Can you imagine? So all this festering resentment, and then you give some of like her shit to her younger sister. Get out of town, that's going to make her cross, isn't it? I don't believe Lucas's family were incredibly impressed with this relationship either. Mainly, I think, because everyone could see it wasn't good or healthy. When they returned to Lucas's house, he was rugby tackled and quite an image, and Kim was taken home. So it almost felt like there'd been some communication there between the aunt and the mum, and it was like, you know, none of us are happy with this. Do you know what it reminded me of? Romeo and Juliet. A bit like these young lovers, star-crossed lovers. Yeah, it did remind me of that. Like they must have felt like they were really trying to be kept apart, and they were desperate not to be. This is when they began to plot the murder of Liz and Katie. I shit you not. They would meet after school at a local McDonald's. Romance. Although I do love Mackie D's. If Paul's like, get your coat on, we're going to Mackie D's, I'll be like, oh, okay. What's your favourite thing to have? I love knowing what people choose at McDonald's. Why? I don't know, I really do. I'm like, what would you get? It's like a sort of level of friendship when I get to that point when I'm like, oh, what would you get at McDonald's? Should I tell you what I get? I love burgers. I would get a Big Mac. Sorry, I know this isn't question time with Sophie, but I'm just going to say I would get a Big Mac or a quarter pounder or a Big Tasty. I'm all about the meat. And I give most of my chips to Paul, who wants a potato. No. Burger, big fat burger. And then I like the mozzarella dippers. Oh, yes, or the little cheesy nacho bites. I haven't had my tea yet. I'm partial to a chicken select. But that would feel like such a waste to not have a big fat burger. And I wonder why I'm not 6 stone. Right, so they would meet at McDonald's and over a milkshake they would discuss the details of how they were going to murder Kim's mum and sister. This has gone to a whole new level. From Lucas's perspective, he was besotted. I think it was an equal measure of how much they both fell in love. From his side, he would have done anything to protect Kim. And she was so desperately unhappy. And she had tried to commit suicide after their relationship had begun. So she was a desperately unhappy child. And I think from what he said in interviews, he would have done anything for her. So getting rid of her mum and her sister who were causing so much pain in her life, that just felt like a no-brainer to Lucas. Also, let's be real, Liz is one of the main people standing in the way of him just being with the love of his life. She is really messing things up and she's desperately trying to keep them apart. So he wants her out of the way. Lucas lives at the end of they live on the same road, but quite a way, one end and the other end of this big road. What they decide is that he will leave his house in the night, climb out of his window, and then he will take a route that nobody would see him along the canal, and then so a bit around about the house, is not just literally walk down the road, and then get to her house. There was scaffolding, I believe, up, so he would climb the scaffolding and he would go to Kim's bedroom window and knock 3 times. She would then let him into the house, and then he would murder Liz and Kim would murder her sister. Their plan is so cold because it's so matter of fact as well, how they just chilling at a McDonald's having a strawberry milkshake. Their plan, can you imagine having that conversation in a McDonald's? Oh, shady. Their plan was to stab each victim through the voice box so that they couldn't scream. That is a very specific and, I'm not going to say clever, but really well thought out, isn't it? Because I wouldn't, this is no murder, crime of passion where you would just want to, act out. This is very meticulous and thought through. Stab them in the voice box and then they can't scream. What? It was just all very matter of fact, that's what they were going to do. He was going to bring a rucksack with knives in it. It was just planned to a T. Very, very organised affair. Just like planning a trip to IKEA, basically. Just no thing. Oh, we'll go there first. Oh, should we get meatballs? Yeah. Got to have the dime cake. Oh, why is it always... I must be hungry because all I can think about is food. However, on the night in question, they agreed a night. It might have even been that night to go through with the plan, the murder, right? Lucas hops out of bed, goes along the canal, blah, blah, he's got his rucksack, got his knives, goes there, gets to Kim's house, a rat-a-tat-tat, no answer. Well, after a bit, he sods off back home, goes to bed. No answer, she didn't wake up. I was thinking, naive me, at first, oh, well, she obviously, a bit nervous. But, she thought, no, can't do it. Just ignore it. I thought of her laying there, anxious and worried. Next day, they meet. He's like, do you still want to go through with the plan? Everything okay? She's like, yeah, I fell asleep. And she, that's what she said. So they try again. He leaves his house. He's got his rucksack, 4 knives in the bag, packed it, ready. Off he goes. Gets to the window, a rat-a-tat-tat. No freaking answer. Again. And off he goes. At this point, I forget they're teenagers because I'd just be pissed off that I'd had 2 bad nights sleep. But he's probably not thinking that. The next day, again, they would meet up and he would be like, 100 times asking her, are you sure that this is what you want? Like, he just wants to make her happy and he feels like he's protecting. I'm not excusing what happens, by the way. And yeah, he's just like, are you sure? Is this what you want? And she's like, yeah, 100%. I fell asleep. Sadly, for Liz and Katie, they would not be so lucky on the third night. And Kim didn't fall asleep. Kim hears the 3 knocks. Kim shares a room with sister Katie, and Katie does not hear the 3 knocks. She hasn't done on the other 2 nights either, and she doesn't this night. But Kim does. Maybe she had herself a coffee or something. She's awake. Kim goes to the bathroom window and she lets Lucas in. And while they're in the bathroom, they get the knives and they get a knife each. Lucas leaves the bathroom and Kim stays in the bathroom because he is going to kill Liz first. He goes into Liz's bedroom and while she is asleep, he stabs her through her neck. He then sits on top of her and holds a pillow over her face. He then stabs her a further 7 times. 5 of these stab wounds are to her hands, so there is a struggle. And 1 is to her shoulder and the other one is again in her throat, in her neck. Kim, waiting patiently in the bathroom, she hears some noises and she goes in to check if Lucas is okay. Righty. So she does that and in the process just witnesses the murder of her mum. She said her mum was making sounds, like gurgling sounds, and that she thought she might have heard her say, "Get off of me." She then said that Lucas sat on top of her mum for about 10 minutes, holding the pillow over her face, and then he checked for her pulse and she had died. Just so detached, which is interesting, isn't it? Because she has these attachment issues. She feels unattached from her family and an outsider. Again, not excusing it, just like, it's interesting. While witnessing the horrific murder of her mother, because even if I was witnessing that of anybody, stranger, anyone, you would just be like horrified. That would traumatise the hell out of you. So think about this kid's state of mind. Well, while she was witnessing the murder of her mother, she realised that she just could not stand the smell of blood, and that makes me feel, what? Never really thought about that, to be honest, until this case. But she said it was overwhelming, the smell of blood. No. I mean, what does blood smell like? The fact, I don't ever want to know, to be honest, don't tell me. In that moment, she realised that she would not be able to kill her sister because she didn't even want to watch. She'd had enough. Lost her stomach for it. When Liz was dead, they had this conversation. She's like, I can't do that. So Lucas, he was like, I'll do it. So Lucas enters into the bedroom. He stabs Katie twice in the neck and holds a pillow over her face until she's died. The autopsy showed that greater force was used with Katie's murder. One of the stab wounds actually was forceful enough to damage one of the vertebrae in the neck. That perhaps could have been because she was smaller than her mum. I don't know. Or maybe he was he was braver this time or enjoying it. Neither victim died straight away. Not at all. And it must have been terrifying and very confusing and painful, and Katie's cause of death was put down as blood loss and also suffocation. Kim asked Lucas if her sister had struggled. She, in her own mind, she could think it was okay because, if they didn't suffer. She then instructed Lucas to take all of his clothes off, get cut off, because they were covered in blood and she was really not liking this whole blood situation. Should have thought about that, love, before you decided to murder your mother and your sister horrifically. Again, frontal lobe. They then ran a bath, and they had a bath together. They then went back into Kim and Katie's bedroom, and I think this might have been when they covered Katie's body, or her head, I think. Kim was really having a problem with the blood situation. They then removed Kim's mattress from her bed and they took that downstairs. So they were like, we're just going to leave these 2 dead bodies up here. They ate some food, ice cream, tea cakes, I believe. And then they watched Twilight, the movie. And that is why it's known also, they're known as the Twilight Killers. And interestingly, don't come for me, I haven't seen the films. It wasn't my cup of tea, really. But I read that the story is about 2 isolated teenagers that fall in love. Doesn't one become a werewolf or something like that? It's fun, isn't it? They don't just then hop up and get on a train to Timbuktu. Oh no. They spend a couple of days like this, watching TV, eating ice cream, having sex, and just chilling out with these 2 bodies upstairs. And you're like, what? Apparently, though, the whole thing is just confusing to me here, but they were never meant to be around because the plan was to murder Liz and Katie and then take their own lives. When the police eventually found them, there was alcohol out, but it hadn't been drunk. And apparently Kim just couldn't stand the smell of it. She's got an aversion to smells, hasn't she? She couldn't drink it, but their plan had been to take a ton of pills and alcohol and off they go. But that doesn't make much sense to me because why kill your mum and sister then? Why not just go off together, in true Romeo and Juliet style? Why take them out as well? I thought the whole idea was more that they were getting them out of the way so that they could have their relationship. And then I thought, well, maybe the story that they were going to kill themselves was just made up. It was just a lie. I don't know why. But then I thought, but if that was the case, why didn't they try and get away? If they were never going to kill themselves, why didn't they just run away again? So it really does feel like they didn't make a plan because they had planned to not be around. They were planning to be dead. Which also makes me think that they're very worrying individuals and that they are going to be eligible for parole at some bloody point. But, maybe they just fancied killing people. Just fancied having a go. Which is worrying. Their bubble was soon burst. Lucas's aunt, school, they reported the kids missing, and Katie. And Liz, she didn't turn up to work, The police broke in. They forced entry and they found the pair shacked up on a bloody mattress in the front room, watching films, eating ice cream. The police asked what happened. Lucas said, why don't you go and see for yourselves? Both confessed and both showed no remorse. Very, very cold, very matter of fact. It wasn't even like she deserved it. There was no emotion. It wasn't even, there was no she was such a bitch and we did this. No, just so cold, so detached, so bizarre. And neither of them tried to blame the other one. Neither of them, they both just were yeah, we did it. Yeah. Kim said that she was okay with it. Yeah, I'm okay with it. It wasn't like it was torture or anything. She in her mind had made it okay because they weren't tortured. She said that she never got on with her mum and that was the reason why. She also interestingly said that there was no sort of hate towards Katie, her younger sister. There must have been resentment, but she didn't say oh yeah, I wanted that Mobag dead as well. No, she just said that she didn't like the thought, and it's almost it's weird. She didn't like the thought of her sister having to live with knowing that her mum, the trauma and the sadness and the grief. She didn't want her sister to have any of that. She thought it was kinder if her sister was gone as well. She also made comments about her mum not having to worry about her anymore. Both of them, Lucas and Kim, were just so open, honest, and almost blasé about what had happened. Just very matter of fact. Yeah, well, we just thought we'd do it, and yeah, we did. The trial showed the jury that there was definitely intent. This wasn't just an episode of madness or psychotic behaviour. It wasn't a crime of passion. It was planned. It was premeditated, beyond belief. Lucas even had a friend at school. It's very tragic. His friend at school, his dad had been murdered. Can you like, what? His dad had been murdered by a group of teenagers, and Lucas was very interested in the murder case, and mainly how some of the teenagers got like they weren't sentenced, and he was very interested in why and how. Like, why? How did they like get away with it? Basically, he wanted to know how they had swerved being prosecuted. Lucas said that they killed Katie. His reasoning for it was just so that she wouldn't call the police, basically. Like, they wanted their few days of joy together. And it is very frightening. I think there's definitely a lot more going on with these kids up here. And I couldn't find anything written about them now. So they are obviously old, like 21 or 22. But I've got a suspicion that there's some psychopathic tendencies there. Well, and that might be diagnosed as they grow. They were given life sentences of 20 years. They appealed it, and they both then got given life sentences of 17 years. Neither have showed any remorse from what, everything that is out there at the moment. I couldn't find anything now. At the time, Kim and Lucas said they were completely happy with what they had done, and that was that. Since going into the justice system, Kim and Lucas have separated, and they will be up for parole in 2033, so they'll be 32, 33 years old. And it is stories like this one that makes me so angry. Like, there are just so many cuts all the time, cut to crucial services for everybody in every way, but like kids' mental health, teenage young people, like a really crucial part in their development of their brain. So little support. And that is all I have for you on today's story. Another one out of a horror movie. If you do get a chance, have a little and if you care, have a little watch of their interviews. That's things like that scare me, because it's just cold. The human brain, isn't it fascinating how it can literally break beyond repair, and people do just awful things. Crazy. Hope the fan hasn't been too noisy. I've had to have it on because I'm sweating. It's too hot. Thanks so much for everyone that commented and watched the Q&A. That was a sweaty bum moment, because a bit different, and it was more, like the whole thing was just me answering questions about me, so I was nervous about that video, but everyone was super lovely about it. And so we are nearly at 1,000. I'm excited, and the merch looks really good. I'm going to love you and leave you. I haven't had my tea and I'm desperate for it. I don't know what I'm going to have. I think I need something stodgy. All I can think of is burgers, but no. Chili? Chicken breast? I better go before I eat my own hand. Okay, I love you. Next time I see you, I think we will have hit 1,000. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Sin and Tonic. Hope you can all join me next week for another true crime story and a mason jar of gin with ginger ale, if you dare. Oh! Love you. Bye.